We've all probably gone out to the supermarket and bought the little jars of pesto. We're going to make it fresh today. You're going to taste the difference. It's a really, really simple, quick dish. The ingredients for pesto really couldn't be any easier. We've got two types of cheeses. We're going to use a nice, fresh Parmigiano Reggiano. We're going to use some Pecorino, some really good quality olive oil, some nice fresh basil. We're going to give it a little twist today. We're going to add some little new boiled potatoes to go around with the pasta, and we're going to use some fresh linguini. So I'm going to start by going with the potatoes. We're going to start off with the hot components of the dish. So the first thing that I've got is some boiling water. I'm going to add a nice generous amount of salt to it, and we're going to drop our new potatoes into the water. Now the new potatoes are potatoes that haven't fully matured yet. It's just basically a little baby potato. So we're going to drop 8 of those in there. At the same time, I've got my pot of boiling water on that I've started. I'm going to season that very generously, because this is the only way that you can actually season pasta, in the water, and it really gives it a beautiful flavor. Now the first thing that we're going to use is some garlic. We're going to drop that straight into the food processor, and then we're going to add all our different nuts. I'm going to start off with some cashew nuts. Now these give the dish wonderful body. We're not just adding the pine nuts, we're going to give it a really hearty, wonderful body with the cashews. We're also going to add the classic pine nuts, which is what most of you think when you're making pesto. We're also going to add nice Parmigiano Reggiano cheese and a little bit of Pecorino. Now be careful, because the Pecorino is very salty, so we're going to be careful when we season this at the end. With the basil, I've already washed this. The most important thing is we're not going to place it underneath a tap and make it wet, because a lot of the flavor of the basil is actually on the outside of the leaves. So I'll show you one leaf. What I'm going to do with it is I've got a slightly damp cloth, lightly dab the basil and just take off any excess little tiny bits of dirt that will be on the basil. It would be very rare if this was actually dirty, but we just have to make sure. Now I'm going to drop this basil. Now that we have all our ingredients in the food processor, we're going to add in our extra virgin olive oil. It's very important that you add the oil in slowly, and we're going to get the perfect consistency. Now that looks as if it's the perfect consistency to me. Let's just taste it and make sure it's okay. Absolutely perfect. You've got all the flavors happening in there. All we have to do now is season it up. Now because the Pecorino is so salty itself, I don't think this needs any seasoning. You might need a tiny little bit of salt. I'm just going to give it a few grinds of the black pepper, and that should really do it. Now we're just going to mix that up and leave it on the side and go and cook the pasta. Now the potatoes have been cooking for about 15 or 16 minutes, and if I just insert a knife there, you can see that they're nice and tender. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those off the heat, and I'm going to leave them there. At the same time, I'm going to move across and cook my pasta. As you can see, the water is really boiling furiously. We're going to add a tiny little bit of olive oil, which really helps the pasta not stick. Now I'm just going to drop the pasta into the water. And as soon as it goes in, it's very important that you use a wooden spoon to stir the pasta to make sure that it doesn't stick together. So we're going to leave that to boil. That'll take about 11 minutes. Just look at your pasta label and it'll tell you on there. So now I've strained my new potatoes off, and I'm going to chop them very, very finely. And we're just going to layer these around the outside of the plate. Now the last thing we have to do is check that the pasta is properly cooked. Just going to get one piece off there. If you want a little tiny bit of bite left in the pasta so that it's nice and al dente, that's perfect. We're going to take it and strain it now. So it goes into the colander. Very careful, because it is very, very hot. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep this pot and we're going to mix it in there, because that'll keep the pasta nice and warm. Just shake off any excess water, and in it goes to the pot. We give it a tiny little bit of olive oil. We're not going to use all the pesto. We're going to put 4 or 5 spoonfuls in here. And the reason we're not going to use it all is because it's a little bit time consuming to make. So the best thing to do is to keep the half of the pesto, which will keep for 3 or 4 days, in your fridge. And you can use that next time. We're going to add a little bit of the cooking water from the pasta that I put to the side. And then we're just going to mix that all up. Really are wonderful flavors coming off that. Now that's it, basically finished. All we have to do is plate it up. We're going to layer a couple of these beautiful potatoes around the outside, and we're serving this in a family style because that's the best way to eat pasta. You could of course serve it up individually, but I really do believe this is a family dish.